A very common question I get from home sellers is, do open houses really work? Do I really need to have one? And after all, we do see them quite often. You see them on multiple third-party websites showing open house this weekend, open house this weekend. So why wouldn't you have an open house? Well, what I'm about to share with you may actually be a surprise to you of why the data actually shows that the probability of your buyer coming from an open house is pretty low. Hi there, I am Melissa Shaw with over 2 decades of real estate experience, and I can tell you over my 2 decades of selling homes, I can attest to the data that I very rarely have received an offer from someone who has come to an open house. In fact, when the National Association of Realtors did their 2024 profile of buyers and sellers, only 3 to 5% of buyers actually wrote an offer on a home that they saw originally from an open house. 51%, according to that study, of buyers who wrote an offer on a home came from online. That's no surprise to me, but I think it's something you as a home seller should definitely be aware of is the data and what really is going to sell your home. So what makes up the other percentage? A large percentage of that, 29% of home buyers actually came from their agents. That's how they found out about a particular home for sale. So what do you do with that information? Open houses obviously aren't irrelevant. They can create neighborhood buzz and excitement and different things, but it's definitely something that needs to be considered if you're planning to pop your home on the market. And even according to Zillow in 2024, their numbers suggest that in 2024, there is 1 to 3 open homes for sellers that they conducted and 0 in 2021. However, those numbers may be obviously a little bit skewed, right? Because what happened, what was going on in 2021? COVID, and real estate and homes were just selling like hotcakes. It was kind of like the toilet paper, right? It was selling off the shelves. So let's really take a closer look and delve a little bit deeper into what are the pros and the cons of hosting an open house so you can actually make an informed decision based on realistic information, so you can make an informed decision while you're thinking about putting your home on the market. So obviously the pros can be pretty obvious. It really creates more visibility within the neighborhood and more neighborhood buzz. It can also allow a seller to vacate their home for extended hours so they can make plans. Maybe they'd like to make plans to go out of town and just to avoid the ins and outs of the appointments. Although that might not be the best strategy in today's market with longer days on market, right? It can also give the seller an opportunity to also just clean their house and have a chunk of time where buyers can come through their home. But again, that may not be the best strategy for this market that we are currently in. You're pretty much banking on the people that are interested in your home being available between that chunk of time on that particular day. So let's look at the cons. The cons are, it could be, especially if your home is sitting vacant, it could be a security risk for you. You could be having people come through your home that you do not know, that could be casing it. That is a real viable thing, right? Another con that could be considered for an open house is that you actually have to keep it clean and you do have to vacate for multiple hours at a time. And with busy schedules, you may not have somewhere to go. Sometimes it works for you, sometimes it doesn't. So that's definitely to consider when you're thinking about open houses. What is the point? What are our goals? And see if they align. The other con to an open house is they are notoriously known for looky-loos, neighborhoods, and non-qualified buyers. In fact, with the changes of the National Association of Realtors and representation, buyers do not need an agency agreement to tour your open house, but they do to actually tour your home for a private showing. So you're less likely to get someone who is ready to pull the trigger right now in purchasing a home. And then you've got the numbers that align of that 3 to 5% who saw your open house and actually wrote an offer. All of that kind of aligns. And obviously what we're talking about today is open houses rarely trigger the offer. So all of these things are super important to take into consideration in weighing up the pros and cons on whether it's really a right fit for you. Does it align with your goals? Does it align with your comfort level? So here's the bottom line. Does open houses really align with your goals? What if you actually skip the open house? Would it actually be the end of the world? According to this data, no. But there's some circumstances, obviously, where it does make sense to do open houses. Since 50% of your buyers that are writing an offer are going to be coming from the digital space, it totally makes sense to be getting out there online. And then another huge percentage of 29% are coming from other agents. No wonder other agents are also selling your home, especially in this type of market. In the end, it really comes down to what makes sense. What makes sense for your marketing goals? What makes sense in your comfort for your family or your situation of selling your home? That's where I come in. If you're curious about talking this through a little bit further, just click the link below. Let's connect. It's a simple conversation. Let's dig a little bit deeper and figure out what's best for you.